What is up, Gacha YouTube? I am so hyped to do this month's Gacha ranking. Last month was so much fun for me, and I got to see a little bit of how you guys thought I was doing things wrong. And so this time around, we actually have a bit of a change up on how I go about doing these tierings, how I went about doing these formulas. And some of y'all actually convinced me that some of your favorite games deserved an up. And after thorough research, I came to agree with some of you, and I came to disagree with a lot of you. So with that said, first things first, I want to go ahead and introduce you guys to my Patreon. At my Patreon, I'm going to go ahead and put a thorough review of each of these games. Now you can go ahead and see all of the images that I have made, as well as seeing some of the images for the upcoming games that I am reviewing if you become a patron. But for free, you can see all of the reviews that I have made in terms of their images, and I'm going to go through and add text to those images as well for free. I just haven't done them at the time of this video. Said I'm hoping to build out an actual gacha community. There is a tier in that community within that allows you to submit content to me, which I will then post to YouTube, where I will make based off of your scripting and your guides, and I will actually give you 100% of the funds that I make from that video. I think that's a pretty cool deal. I'm just trying to find ways to get involved with you, the gacha community, and I know that you, the gacha community, take this stuff with a very large amount of passion, and frankly, I love that. I want that. I want more of you guys in my life, and I want to find ways to engage with you. So if you can think of awesome ways, just let me know. But a lot of y'all don't care about that. Let's get into the thing that you do like.
Hey, listen.
Just do it!
First things first, when you look at this list, you will see a few different changes. I went ahead and added some context for what I view each of these rankings are. Remember, 5 is an average game, so some games below a 5 could actually be things that you enjoy playing, but they're largely not things that I would recommend to the larger global audience. This list isn't specifically for those fans of the gacha industry specifically. This is for if you're just getting into gacha for the first time, maybe these are things you want to check out, the larger public as a whole, and not so much the fanatics. So sometimes maybe the 4s are for you, sometimes maybe the 5s are for you, sometimes you don't like the S. That's okay. I just wanted to give a little bit of context to that so you could see how these rankings actually break down. So if you're sitting there and you're like, oh man, how did this game get a 7? It's definitely a 10. Well, remember that 7 means that I still think that it is an amazing and great game, but it could have its flaws to it, which I think most people would agree that all of these games have some sort of flaw to it. And as always, I have the to be played category here, which we go ahead and fill out first every time. These are the games that I do not have enough hours in to go ahead and log an accurate ranking. Now, we have added a few new games to this list compared to last time, as well as tweaked some of the last rankings, so there's a lot to get out of this. But let's go ahead and fill in this to be played ranking. We have Azure Lane, Destiny's Child, World of the Visions, Brave Exodus, Heroes Tactics, King's Raid, Marvel Strike Force, 7 Deadly Sins, Swordmaster. I don't remember what this icon is, but I haven't played it yet. Sorry. Sinnoh Alice, Summoner's War. And these are the games right off the bat that I know I need to get to, guys. If you want me to add more to this list, even if you told me last time and you don't see it on this, be sure to remind me. There are quite a few games that I want to add to this list. I want to make this list as comprehensive as possible, but you got to remember, I am the only one doing this so far. Maybe it's not worth tooting my own horn there, but I feel like I'm pretty well versed in most of the industry, so I feel like it's fair for me to review some of these things based off of it. But let's go ahead and get into the GOAT. Hold on. Before we get into the rest of it, I'm giving $100 worth of Amazon gift cards if we can get to 2,000 subs, guys. But here's the catch. If we can get to 2,000 subs before the end of December, I will go ahead and double that. Okay, so $200 worth of Amazon gift cards if we can get to 2,000 subs before the end of December. So be sure to like, subscribe, comment into this here video, and get your chance to enter into that competition and get me up to the 2,000 mark so I can give away this moolah. So here at the SS above a 9, we only have one person because only one person can be the GOAT. Well, maybe there will be some GOATs in the future. But for right now, guys, it is Guardian Tales. Now, guys, when you look at Guardian Tales, I did go ahead and bump it up in 2 different categories. So I'll go ahead and show you that image right now. I gave it an extra point in progression and an extra point in community. Why did I do that? Well, guys, they actually added a lot of quality of life features between the last month. A lot of the issues that I had with the core gameplay of leveling up and getting the awakening stones and getting these characters to max once you get them, they're actually resolving a lot of that. Now you can instantaneously put one unit into a chamber similar to AFK Arena and it'll jump up to max levels. They've already shown that they're going to scale this out to 3 over time, and you can even get max awakenings, max levels, max awakenings, and max limit breaks as well. So that is an insane amount of hours, like 1,000 hours plus potentially of worth of content that they're just going to instantaneously give you for 3+ units. And to me, that is freakishly amazing. And guys, I went ahead and gave the community a +1 as well. This game is growing in terms of its community base very quickly, and the reviews of this game are overwhelmingly astronomical. The amount of love that you see these people in the community give their developers is insane. You really don't see a lot of complaining. This is truly remarkable. Even though a game like Genshin Impact will have a higher community score because the game is freaking a mainstream media type of game and it has a ton of content for it, this game gets nothing but love from those that play it. So even if the chibi style isn't for you, maybe you should check it out because seemingly everybody loves it. Speaking of Genshin Impact, it still clocks in at 8.14. Nothing has been changed since last time. I think a lot of the issues that I had with the monetization still are not resolved, even with this resin update. And I think a lot of the progression issues are only getting worse the higher AR levels you get. I will not show you that image because it's the exact same as last time. If you want to see that image, be sure to look at the last video or go onto the Patreon and see a more thorough breakdown of that game. Guys, and then here in the A tier, the great games, you're going to see a lot of changes compared to last time. Last time around, we had 2 in the S, which was Guardian Tales and Genshin Impact. Obviously, we switched that up. We have 1 in the SS and 1 in the S because there is quite a big difference between their 2 rankings. But now in the A tier, you're going to see a lot of new faces. Last time around, there was only Dragalia Lost, and now I actually have 6 games in there. A lot of them are really big revamps from last time around, and some of them are brand new to this tier list. So the first one is actually Arknights. As you can see, Arknights has a big jump in uniqueness, monetization, and community. The uniqueness and the monetization were actually convinced to me by the community at large. So many of y'all came to me and said, you really need to rethink this. Here are the cut and dry reasons why this game is unique. Here are the cut and dry reasons why you're wrong about the monetization. And obviously, so many people came back to me and looking at the analytics, and I went back and refactored the formula based off of Reddit, Twitter, Facebook, all the engagements as a whole. And this community is actually very strong compared to what I thought was rather weak before, which, I mean, to my fault, I was wrong about this. It was actually based off of the engagement and the feedback that I had from the community the first time around and the people's perception of it. But in reality, people's words don't always stand up to reason, and fact and logic says that this community is booming. So with that, Arknights actually gets a significant jump up, finishes at the high end of the A, so it's a very great game. Borderline must play at a 7.17 or 7.71, and there's a lot to love about Arknights. As you can see, the core gameplay elements of it, the graphics, story, progression, and gameplay, those didn't change too much. So all of that was already true. It was just the ecosystem around it that I got wrong. All right, next up is back to Dragalia Lost. Now, Dragalia Lost finished very well last time around, and I actually gave it 1 point off this time in the graphics. When I went back and played on this anniversary up, the graphics weren't as appealing as I remembered it to be. It seems like they haven't progressed over time as much as I remembered them to have been, but they're still very good. So dropping it from a 9 to an 8 feels appropriate in context to the rest of the games, which isn't a huge knockoff of it. I mean, it's still a 7.28. It's still a very great game to play. And if you're free to play, it might be even the one you want to go after. And then next will be Honkai Impact. Honkai Impact was a game that I definitely hated on unjustly the time before. People really convinced me that even though the progression system isn't the type of styling that I'll like, where a lot of these units are free to acquire, and there's so much upgrading and gacha rolling that goes into making these things better, it actually was a lot more manageable with recent updates than I remembered it to be. So I gave it just a +1. Some people were telling me that it needs to be like a 7 or 8. I haven't seen enough to make it that high yet, but I feel like putting it at a 5, sure, we can justify the 4 to 5 bump if enough people are telling me that the progression systems is more than fair. I didn't think that in the time, and what people were telling me was definitely improvement, but it doesn't scream a system that I want to jump out and play. So I'm just going to put it at a 5 for now. The uniqueness, the monetization, and the community all got us a little bit of a buff, mainly in the monetization. The game isn't as pay to win as I remember it being. It seems like with the initiation of Genshin Impact over the last 4 months since I've played it, they've actually made quite a big deal of quality of life improvements that made the game more accessible to more people. And of course, because I've got so much feedback about how I was wrong about the game, I went back and refactored the community rankings to fit more metrics, and it came out at about a 6. So Honkai Impact at a 7.14 seems pretty fair for it. And now at a 7.1.4, it's actually tied with Illusion Connect. In Illusion Connect, when you went back, you'll see that I actually negged it on graphics, uniqueness, and monetization. The reason why you see the graphics go back a little bit is because there's a lot more bugs that are being introduced to this game. The animations are no longer being added in bulk. There isn't no more real uniqueness to it. They seem to be refactoring a lot of the existing character models to give about new units in which we can get. Looking at into the future, there are a good amount of skins that'll be added to it, but I think that there needs to be more work in terms of the animation styling, in terms of giving you the UX more flair to it that doesn't exist currently. And I was hoping to see some of that with the latest updates in the events, but the events themselves don't cater to any new type of graphical output or animation stylings. They're all text-based with a couple of images thrown in. And uniqueness, I had to give it a point down because I ended up playing Brave 9, which is an older game, and it is actually about the same, if not a little bit more complex. So apparently Illusion Connect isn't as unique as I thought it was. So I didn't get one on that. I mean, the combat style as a whole is pretty well fleshed out compared to Brave 9, so we'll keep it at about a 7. Monetization, the bugs that came through showed it that way. The limited banners are definitely the biggest knock on this game as a whole. And now as that we've seen more limited banners come out, we know for sure that there's going to be a lot more characters that are not accessible to free-to-play players. And that to me is a pretty bad thing. And if they are accessible to free-to-play players, not at a meaningful rate, you need these 5 and 6 star, you need these units to be 5 and 6 stars to truly get their capacity. The majority of them cannot even be usable at 3 stars. So you're not only having to get them, you're having to put at least 2 months worth of grinding into them in the Arcana to get the shards and able to do this as a free-to-play player, which makes it basically not free-to-play. You need to pull it multiple times to be able to use it effectively, and to me that's a knock. I would have loved to see more ways for free-to-play players to get advantages in the game based off their ability to play the game and their willingness to play the game. And community, the community continues to grow in this game. I thought it was actually going to go down after the hype, but it's actually continuing to ramp up in hype, and more people are coming about into the Reddit channels, into the Twitter, into the Facebooks, and logging positive feedback. So when refactored, it did get a 6 in terms of community. So overall, Illusion Connect is getting a boost. Okay, guys, the next one is a new one here at Another Eden here at the great game. I won't go too far in depth with Another Eden here. I won't even show you guys the graphic because I do have a dedicated video for this one about to be released. If you want to see more information, be sure to check out my Patreon, subscribe to the channel, and get in this. I mean, it's 2020. I got to do a little bit of a shill here, guys. I mean, I got to put food on the table. So if you're interested to hear my true thoughts on Another Eden and why it slots into the great game, we'll get into that soon. And then next we have Epic 7 coming in at a 7. Only fitting that Epic 7 gets a 7. Guys, I changed nothing but the community. The community for this game is actually off the charts. In terms of engagement, positive feedback, it seems that the only thing that people do not like is the gacha roll system for the soul system and for duplicates. So there it is for the community. Everything else seems to be pretty positive about this game. And so we bumped it up to a 9, making Epic 7 finish in the great game category. Now we get into the good games. These are the games that are frankly good. You can play them right off the bat knowing absolutely nothing and enjoy the mess out of them. They may not be for you. There are very, very strong flaws in each of these games, but they're definitely good. They're things that I may not recommend to the general public like I would from 7 and above, but if I know that you're a hardcore gacha fan, I may be like, hey, check these ones out. These might be right up your alley based off what you tell me. The first one that slots into the B category that almost finished at an A is Fire Emblem Heroes. Now, similar to Another Eden, I haven't quite done a video on this one yet, so I'm gonna hide this one from you guys. Ooh, mystery. But it does slot almost at a 7. And next is another new game onto this list as well, Fate Grand Order, which definitely finished below Fire Emblem Heroes, but still is a good game. Similar to nature, I haven't put out a video for this one yet, so no image for it quite yet, but it does slot in at the good game. Another game that's slotting at good that I'm really actually thankful that I played, and I was very, very wrong about in the beginning, if you watched my I'm Skeptical video, was Goddess of Genesis S. There are definitely issues that I have with this game, especially around the turret system, definitely around the longevity of the game and how active the devs are actually at promoting a community for this game. But overall, what this game does, it does very, very well, and I was very pleasantly surprised in it. If I didn't have so many other options to choose from, if this was my first gacha experience, I think I would thoroughly love it. This game has enough to get me hooked to it. It even has enough for me to invest into it, but knowing that there's other options, it doesn't really fall into the great and must play category, even though it is a very, very well polished game that is very much held back by the ecosystem itself, the developers, and the monetization strategy that they have for the game. But overall, very strong game. I was very happy that I actually went out of my way to play it. Next, we are here at the sea. Maybe these games are for you. They're definitely very different. Some of them are very unique in nature. Some of them have very strong IPs. Maybe it's for you, but it's just probably not for everyone. The first one here is Evertale. We changed nothing about Evertale, so if you're interested in more information about Evertale, be sure to check the last video or Patreon, which leads us right into Exos Heroes. Now, there is a change to Exos Heroes, so I'll go ahead and show you that image. Now, Exos Heroes gets a -1 in terms of progression, guys. A lot of these systems that they have put out over the last few months have really, really made it nearly impossible for the top end of players to play with things that aren't outside of the meta, and make it even more impossible for free-to-play users to compete against the whales in the game. All the new systems that they are putting into the game are catering directly to whales. Each new update that they put in hampers the progress immensely. It's like they create a wall in the game, and then they create an update that has a much higher wall, give you the ability to get through that last wall a little quicker, and then you just ram your face straight into the next wall, and it feels like it's impossible to get over unless you give them your credit card. And for that reason, I knocked their progression. It's pretty average at that point. You can get closer to in-game without paying a dime. You'll very much enjoy your first playthrough of it, but it doesn't really endure much more than that, in my opinion. The graphicals and everything like that are amazing still, but guys, playing games is really out there for your wallet. And then next is Tales of Crestoria. Tales of Crestoria actually got a pretty significant downgrade, mainly from the community aspect from it and also the gameplay itself. I did not realize that this game was still swarmed with as many bugs as there is. I nicknamed it Tales of Crestoria for the longest time, but man, oh man, it hasn't got too much better over time. And when refactoring the community, not nearly as strong as it was last time I touched this game, so it definitely got a knock back on that. And now it's slotting into maybe good for you. If you're really into Tales, it's still a good game. It's still worth a playthrough, but it's probably not your go-to gacha anymore. Slotting in after Tales of Crestoria is another large faller in Idola Phantasy Star Saga. Man, I really, really loved Idola Phantasy Star Saga, but it really is taking a turn for the worst here as late. Bolt Trends, I feel sorry for you. There's not much you can do, but you've also done a great deal to make it worse for yourselves. The progression system is very much getting stagnant. There are new systems in place since the last time around, and the last time around was an optimistic 6. Now it is definitely a 5. You can get characters to max level very, very quickly in the game, and there's nothing to do past that other than to roll for dupes. The gameplay itself, as they have introduced these new heroes, the meta seems to be shrinking, and there's less viability between the interactive units. So for that reason, the gameplay has definitely followed back closer to the Exos Hero scale. When it was that there was all of these options to it, it was much better in the gameplay, but now the pool of heroes seems very much condensed. A lot of the 5, 4s, and 3 stars don't even seem relevant at this point, so it's definitely falling back in the gameplay scale as well. And knowing that what we know about the Japanese, it's only going to get worse. The uniqueness stays absolutely the same, and the monetization strategies for this game continue to slide a little further back and a little further back. There was that big fiasco where they did correct the issues of the step-up system, so I will give them credit for that, but that does not replace the overall monetization strategy of this game being rather limiting. You can definitely get through this game as a whole as a free-to-play player, which is why it's still at a 4. You can still get pretty far as a free-to-play player, but it's not really a good monetization strategy. So even though it is accessible to free-to-play players, players, which is why it's just slightly below average at a 4 instead of a 5, 5 being average. It's not something that you would recommend to other companies to model, which would be at the 6 to above range. And then community, the game is not adding new users. It is just losing users. So the community is going to continue to fall backwards, guys. And I would not be surprised if this time last year it is at the 1 or the 0 range for the community in this game. And then next we have Hero Cantare. Nothing changed with Hero Cantare or sdorica, so we won't go into those too much. If you're interested in those, check out the previous video, hop onto the Patreon. And then the next one that will actually be surprising you as a significant update is AFK Arena. There are two things that I got very, very wrong about AFK Arena is I did not realize that the game's subreddit and Twitter activity was as off the charts as it was. This game is definitely attracting the mainstream audience in a way that I did not know it was doing, because the gacha gaming community seems to seemingly forget about it. So when I went back and I refactored these things based off the actual metrics and not community opinion, man, oh man, did it change. It now sits at an 8 out of 10. And if you guys want to know why this is justified, just go look at their subreddit. Gosh. And the monetization, a lot of people showed me how the game has changed since I last played it to where it is more accessible to free-to-plays. I still don't think that it's a good monetization strategy, but it's definitely more accessible to free-to-play players, which is why it's at a 3. And based off of what you saw of how I explained Idola, you can understand how I feel about the AFK Arena ranking here. But overall, at 5.14, it's definitely much better ranking than it was last time around. And also slotting in right behind it is Puzzles and Dragons to round out our C tier. Nothing changed with Puzzles and Dragons, so we'll go right along on that one as well. Now here at the 4 tier, the DOK, which it just missed out just barely, is Lord of Heroes. It came in at a 5, so since we said it had to be greater than 5, sadly Lord of Heroes is just here at the edge between okay and maybe for you. I think with the changes in emulator, it may be for you, but guys, the monetization strategy in this game is still pretty rough. It is not growing in the community, and frankly, based off of the awards that it won lately, it had to have paid for the community that it has to a very large inorganic manner. I don't have proof to back that up, but it just does not make sense to me. Next, we have Monster Super League. We changed nothing about Monster Super League, so again, if you want to know more about why it is placed here, go back and look at the previous video. And then followed is Raid Shadow Legends. And guys, I have to apologize to you. I actually had the wrong statistics in the graphic as a whole. When I went and looked at my spreadsheet, it was not reflecting what was on the image. That is totally my bad. Here's the updated ranking for Raid Shadow Legends and exactly where I would put it. As you can see, I definitely still think that it has a good core gameplay. I do actually think that the graphics are pretty good and compelling, and a lot of times I do think that it's very unique. There are so many different champions that you can run that are actually good. The gameplay is engaging. I've never felt like heroes have as much impact as they do in that game, and the decisions that I've had actually have very large consequences, and I really like that about Raid Shadow Legends. And it seems that the devs are taking a very earnest approach to changing a way that the community perceives it and the way that it monetizes things. I don't think it's anything less than or anything more than predatory still, but if the changes go about the way that they are claiming that they will, maybe this game actually gets off of the 1. Overall, I think that Raid Shadow Legends is a good game at its core, but when it comes into total ecosystem, it's predatory. So if you have a steel wallet that can never be opened, maybe Raid Shadow Legends is for you. And then next is a new entry at Magatsu Warhite. Magatsu Warhite was really fun for a week, but it died off pretty quickly. The graphics don't look as good on the surface, but it does have a decent amount of charm to the way that they actually go about executing it. The story is above average. The progression system is the only reason that you're there. It is super addicting to progress your character very, very quickly, to get all those levels, to farm, do those things that you love to do in an MMORPG very quickly. And then the gameplay is actually pretty above average in the way that you can jump into instances and you are a singular character on a 4-man JRPG team. It's pretty fun. Uniqueness, it doesn't execute that the way you want it to, and the monetization and the community definitely are not what you want out of a game. But I can definitely understand why this game appeals to some people. And for the more hardcore spenders and the more hardcore community people, Magatsu really may be the game that drives them the most. And I definitely understand why. Next, falling into the OK tier is Hyper Heroes. I actually enjoy Hyper Heroes in terms of its gameplay. I think its top battle system, it's pretty unique. I feel like you're playing with Beyblades, which is always kind of fun, brings you back to a more innocent point of view. It definitely has more predatory monetization strategies. It's lacking in terms of community and overall involvement, and it doesn't really have much of a story to it. But overall, I had fun. And now we are getting into the note. First and foremost to me is Heroes War Counterattack. Guys, I can't say enough about Heroes War Counterattack. It did not live up to my expectations. I still, to this day, when talking to people that love this game, do not understand the points that they make. They seem to seemingly find really weird ways to justify their reasoning. And overall, I just was not a fan. There is a lot that I would need ComToUS to change for me to even consider coming back to the game again. So yeah, Heroes War slots in at a nope. Next is Summoner's Greed, and oh man, Summoner's Greed is actually very, very interesting to me. I actually had a ton of fun playing Summoner's Greed, but I completed it with nothing more to do other than to be overkill in less than a week. It is an idle tower defense game with no community involvement. The monetization itself is actually really predatory, but you don't even need to do it. You can beat the entire game free to play with no additional content for you to even access. So if you want to play a tower defense game that's actually kind of fun, very straightforward, and gives you a ton of gacha rolls all the time, maybe Summoner's Greed is for you. But overall, I would say it's a nope of a game. I would never recommend it to anyone but a gacha purist that I know loves idle games and wants to waste some time. Next is Brave 9. I was not happy with my time in Brave 9. I definitely saw the graphics and the story were not as good as people told me they would be. The progression system seemed very lackluster. I did see that there would be a lot of strategy to the game, and it was very, very complex and not as straightforward as I wanted it to be. And the community and monetization seemed predatory at best. Overall, not happy with my time in Brave 9. I was kind of bummed based off the reviews that I'd seen some of the older players and give it. It just does not stand to the test of time. And last and least is Idle Heroes. There's not much I can actually say positive about Idle Heroes. I know it has a pretty large community that isn't very active. It does have a lot of downloads. It is making a good deal of money, but to be honest, there is no story. The graphics in it are very subpar. They're very bright and friendly and colorful. The gameplay is the most generic gameplay you'll run into. You're there for the progression system, and it's a very, very, very dupe-centric progression system, which means that its monetization practices are downright abysmal. Overall, not impressed with Idle Heroes. I would recommend it to literally no one, and anybody that is still playing that game, I can guarantee you I can find a game you will like more than it. And so guys, that does it for this month's Gacha tier list. I look forward to kicking off 2021 in January 01 with the next phase, where hopefully I can get some of these to be played and the coming games to be released in the rest of 2020 onto this list. Another shout out to my Patreon and the previous videos and those people at Eden Gaming Network. It's been really fun doing this, guys, and I really look forward to doing it some more. So if this interests you at all, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment below, guys. Take care.